The morning sun streamed through the windows of the quaint café, casting a warm glow on the tables. Jessica and Mary, seated in their favorite corner, were surrounded by the gentle hum of conversation and the clinking of coffee cups. Jessica's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Mary, I have to tell you something," she began, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. "I think I found the one. His name is David, and he's just wonderful." Mary, always the voice of reason, looked at Jessica with a mix of fondness and concern. "Jess, you know I'm happy for you, but aren't you moving a bit fast? It's only been a few months since you and Michael ended things." Jessica waved her hand dismissively. "Michael was a mistake, I see that now. But David is different. He's kind and understanding, and he really listens to me." Mary sipped her coffee, her eyes studying Jessica. "That's great, but don't you think it's important to take your time? You've always jumped from one relationship to another. Maybe it's time to slow down." Jessica leaned forward, her blue eyes earnest. "I know what you're thinking, Mary. But with David, it's like he sees the real me. He makes me feel so—" Mary couldn't help but smile at her friend's infectious enthusiasm. "Well, if he makes you happy, that's what counts. But promise me you'll be careful, okay? You have a big heart, Jess, and I don't want to see you get hurt again." Jessica reached across the table, squeezing Mary's hand. "Thank you, Mary. I promise I'll be careful. But I really think this could be it. He's already talking about a future together." Mary raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with humor and a hint of caution. "Talking about the future already? He doesn't waste any time, does he?" Laughing, Jessica nodded. "He doesn't. And neither do I. I think it's time for me to embrace this new beginning, don't you think?" As they continued their conversation, the cafe buzzed around them, a backdrop to a friendship as steady as the changing seasons and as warm as the coffee in their cups. For Jessica, this was more than just a new romance. It was a chance to finally find the happiness she had been searching for. The cafe had grown quieter as the morning rush faded. Jessica and Mary remained at their table, now adorned with empty coffee cups and the remnants of pastries. The conversation had taken a more serious turn, delving into the depths of Jessica's romantic history. Mary, her expression thoughtful, broke the silence. "Jess, remember how you felt about Joseph? You were so sure he was one back then. What makes David different?" Jessica's face clouded with a mix of emotions. "Joseph was a chapter of my life I closed a long time ago, Mary. With him, I thought I knew what love was, but it was more about infatuation." Mary nodded, urging her to continue. "But isn't it possible you're feeling the same way about David now? How can you be sure it's not just another infatuation?" Jessica sighed, tracing the rim of her coffee cup with her finger. "I've asked myself that 1,000 times. But with David, it feels more mature, more real. He's not just some fling, Mary. We connect on a deeper level." Mary leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "I just don't want you to make the same mistakes, Jess, moving too fast, getting swept away by the romance of it all. It's a pattern with you, and I'm worried you're not seeing it." Jessica looked out the window, watching the world go by. "Maybe you're right, Mary. Maybe I do rush into things. But with David, it feels like I'm rushing into something good, something lasting." Mary reached out, touching Jessica's hand. "Just be sure to take a step back once in a while. Look at things objectively. Love is beautiful, Jess, but it's also blinding." Jessica nodded slowly, a mix of appreciation and contemplation on her face. "I know you're looking out for me, and I love you for that. I'll try to be more cautious, but I also don't want to let fear hold me back from potentially great things." The friends shared a knowing look, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They both knew that Jessica's journey was her own, but it was comforting to navigate it with a friend's guiding hand. As the afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the cafe, Jessica and Mary delved into memories of their past, reflecting on the journeys that had led them to where they were now. Do you remember our high school graduation? Jessica asked, a nostalgic smile playing on her lips. We were so young and full of dreams. Mary chuckled, her eyes lighting up with reminiscence. How could I forget? You were the prom queen, and I was the valedictorian. We both had our moments in the spotlight, didn't we? Jessica nodded. We did. But it's funny how our paths diverged after that. You went off to college, pursuing your dreams of becoming a teacher. And I guess I got a bit lost along the way. Mary reached across the table, her expression softening. You weren't lost, Jess. You were just following your heart, even if it led you down a different path. Jessica sighed, her gaze drifting. I sometimes wonder if I should have focused more on my education, like you did. Maybe I wouldn't have made so many mistakes in love if I had. Mary shook her head. Don't think like that. Our choices make us who we are, and you've always had a big heart. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. Jessica smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. But look at you, Mary. You're going to be an amazing teacher. You've always been so driven and focused. I admire that about you. Mary smiled back, her tone encouraging. And you have qualities I admire, Jess. Your passion, your zest for life, your ability to love so deeply. We're different, but that's what makes our friendship special. Jessica nodded, a sense of clarity dawning on her. You're right. We each have our own strengths. I guess I've just been searching for mine in the wrong places. As they continued their conversation, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cafe. In the comfort of their friendship, Jessica and Mary found not only a reflection of their past, but also a hopeful glimpse into their future path. A few weeks later, under a starlit sky at their favorite beachside spot, David took Jessica's hands in his. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore provided a serene backdrop to the momentous occasion. Jessica, from the moment I met you, I knew you were someone special, David began, his voice filled with emotion. You've brought so much joy and light into my life. I can't imagine a future without you. In the tension pressity, Jessica's heart raced with anticipation and a touch of fear. The reflection of the moonlight in David's eyes only heightened the intensity of. I've thought about this moment so many times, David continued, reaching into his pocket. He got down on one knee, presenting a beautiful ring that glittered in the moonlight. Jessica, will you marry me? Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes. She was overwhelmed by a mix of elation and apprehension. David, I don't know what to say. David looked up at her, his expression hopeful yet anxious. Say you'll be my wife, Jessica. Say we'll spend the rest of our lives together. Jessica's mind flashed back to her conversations with Mary, the warnings about moving too fast echoing in her thoughts. Yet, looking into David's eyes, all she could see was love and a future filled with happiness. Yes, David, yes, I'll marry you, she finally said, her voice a mix of joy and uncertainty. As David slipped the ring on her finger, Jessica couldn't help but wonder if she was making the right decision. The doubts lingered, but in that moment, the promise of a new beginning with David felt like a risk worth taking. On their way home, Jessica was quiet, lost in her thoughts. David, sensing her contemplation, squeezed her hand gently. Are you okay, Jess? You seem distant all of a sudden. Jessica forced a smile, not wanting to dampen the mood. I'm just overwhelmed, that's all. It's a big step, but I'm happy. Really, I am. As they drove through the night, the ring on her finger felt both like a beacon of hope and a weight of uncertainty. Jessica knew that the journey ahead would be filled with love, but also challenges that would test the very essence of her heart. The days following the proposal were a whirlwind of emotions for Jessica. She often found herself sitting by her bedroom window, staring blankly at the world outside, lost in. One evening, Mary visited Jessica, finding her friend in a reflective mood. The room was softly lit, creating a serene atmosphere. Hey Jess, Mary greeted gently. How are you feeling? You've been quiet since the proposal. Jessica turned to her, her eyes a mix of happiness and confusion. "I'm happy, Mary. I truly am. But I also feel like I'm standing at a crossroads. I keep asking myself, am I ready for this?" Mary sat beside her, her tone understanding. "It's normal to have doubts, especially considering your past experiences. What does your heart tell you?" Jessica sighed deeply. "My heart says yes, but my mind is filled with questions. Am I repeating my past mistakes? Am I rushing into this? I just don't know." Mary placed a comforting hand on Jessica's. "Listen, Jess, it's important to trust your instincts. You've grown and learned so much. Trust yourself to make the right decision." Jessica nodded, a sense of appreciation in her eyes. "I know, Mary, but it's hard. I've always been led by my heart, and it's led me to places of both immense joy and deep pain." Mary's voice was soft but firm. "Maybe it's time to find a balance between your heart and your head. You deserve happiness, Jess, but make sure it's the kind that lasts." Jessica looked out the window again, her mind racing with thoughts. "I want to believe that David is different, that we can build something lasting. But there's this fear inside me, a fear of making another mistake." Mary squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Whatever you decide, Jess, know that I'm here for you. Take your time, think things through. It's your life, and you have the right to choose what's best for you." As Mary left later that evening, Jessica felt a sense of gratitude for having a friend like her. The crossroads she faced was not just about her relationship with David, but also about her journey towards self-understanding and the courage to face the uncertainties of the future. A few days later, Jessica arranged to meet David at their favorite park, a place filled with memories of their early dates. The autumn leaves painted the ground in hues of orange and red, reflecting the season's change, much like the shift in Jessica's heart. David greeted her with a warm smile and an embrace. "Hey Jess, you look beautiful," he said, his eyes shining with affection. Jessica returned his smile, though her eyes betrayed a hint of sadness. "David, we need to talk," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Her concern flickered across David's face. "Is everything okay? You've seemed a bit distant lately." They found a secluded bench, the air crisp and cool around them. Jessica took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "David, these past months with you have been wonderful. You've shown me kindness, love, and understanding." But she paused, her heart heavy. "I've been doing a lot of..." David took her hand, his voice filled with worry. "Thinking about what? Sir, about us? About me?" Jessica continued, her eyes meeting his. "I've realized that I've been rushing into things, not just with you, but my whole life. I jump from one relationship to another, searching for happiness, but maybe I need to find happiness within myself first." David's expression softened, a mix of understanding and sadness in his eyes. "I love you, Jessica. I thought we were happy together." Jessica's voice cracked with emotion. "We are, and I love you too. But I can't keep looking for someone else to complete me. I need to learn to be whole on my own. I'm not sure I'm ready for marriage, not yet." David nodded slowly, his heart aching. "I don't want to lose you, Jess, but I understand. I want what's best for you, even if it means letting you go." Tears filled Jessica's eyes as she squeezed his hand. "I need to do this, David, for both of us. I hope you can forgive me." David pulled her into a hug, his voice muffled. "There's nothing to forgive. I just want you to be happy, Jessica, truly happy." As they parted ways, Jessica felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. She knew she had made the right decision, but it didn't make it any less painful. Walking away, she felt the weight of her engagement ring, a symbol of a love she cherished but wasn't ready to fully embrace. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Jessica felt a sense of clarity about her journey. She was on her way to discovering her own strength and happiness, independent of anyone. Several months had passed since Jessica's decision to end her engagement with David. She had embarked on a journey of self-discovery, one that led her to unexpected places both within and outside herself. Jessica stood in front of a classroom filled with eager young faces. It was her first day as a teaching assistant, a role she had taken up while pursuing a degree in education. The path she had chosen was inspired by her friend Mary and her own desire to find a purpose beyond romantic relationship. As she introduced herself to the class, a student raised her hand. "Miss Jessica, what made you want to become a teacher?" the young girl asked with genuine curiosity. Jessica smiled warmly, her heart swelling with a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in a long time. "Well, I've always loved learning and sharing knowledge, but more than that, I wanted to make a difference, to contribute something meaningful to." After the class, Mary, who is now a full-time teacher at the same school, met Jessica in the teacher's lounge. "How was your first day?" Mary asked, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "It was amazing, Mary. I feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be," Jessica replied, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Mary beamed with pride. "I always knew you had it in you, Jess. You're going to be a great teacher." Jessica took a sip of her coffee, reflecting on her journey. It's funny, isn't it? How life takes us down paths we never expected. I thought my happiness depended on finding the right partner, but it was here all along, waiting for me to discover it in myself and in helping others. Mary nodded, her expression one of understanding. Happiness is a strange thing. Sometimes it's not about finding it, but creating it in the things we do and the choices we make. Jessica gazed out the window, watching the children play in the schoolyard. "I've learned so much about myself these past months. I've grown in ways I never thought possible. And I owe a lot of that to you, Mary. Thank you for being my friend, for guiding me, for challenging me." Mary smiled, reaching across the table to hold Jessica's hand. "That's what friends are for, Jess. We lift each other up. And remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more out there for you to explore and experience." As the bell rang, signaling the end of the break, Jessica stood up, feeling a renewed sense of hope and excitement for the future. She had found a new purpose, a new passion, and most importantly, a new understanding of herself. Walking back to her classroom, Jessica realized that her journey of self-discovery was not just about finding happiness in solitude, but also in the joy of connecting with others, of making a difference in the world, one student at a time.